Možda najpristojnije na svijetu što možete. Najpristojnije. Možda samo dođete do njih, čak im se ne obratite. Hvala. I onda im se zahvalite. Morate nešto napraviti. U people managementu, u vođenju ljudi, u odnosi s ljudima, na tome ste toliko pričali jučer, ključno vam je conditioning ili uvjetovanje. Ako netko napravi mikrokorak prema putu od 1000 milja, mora biti good job. Makar je taj mikrokorak katastrofa. Ali ako napravi kontrakorak, nešto morate napraviti. Jedini je naš problem u životu svakog od nas da promašimo se intenzitetom. I to ne možemo, jednostavno ne možemo. Dijete bude na državnom prvenstvu iz pisanja algoritma i dođe ponosna mama Ana doma i kaže srce moje, ajmo McDonald's. Ajde. I onda do McDonald's je slučajno pored Berške, Pull&Beara, majde onda Berška, ajde Pull&Bear, i sada po intenzitetu ti si malo pretjerala. Jer si nešto intrinzično prebacila u vanjsko, ali htjela si najbolje. S druge strane, evo imamo Tonija ovdje sa odraslom djecom i Toni kaže svom sinu, evo, sve pospremi sobu, sve naravno šta na igricama, drugi prolazi i kaže, pospremi sobu, pa to ne mogu. I treći put Toni dolazi, intenzitet kakav? Pretjeran. Totalno pretjeran. Znači sad si pretjerao. Jesam ti rekao. I sad umjesto da gradiš odnos sa sinom, ti si sve proveo u krivu stranu. Uglavnom ovako, u dobra stara vremena, na tehničkim konferencijama pričalo se o tehnologijama. I to je bilo super. Onda prije nekoliko godina, recimo 10, počeli ste vi spikeri, ali niste upravo spikerima, nego publici koja postavlja pitanja, počeli ste pričati o nečemu što bi trebao biti grow. I onda, kako je jučer rekao Mario, grow your others, grow yourself. Ok, ovo su samo riječi koje su jučer ljudi koristili. I recimo sad, samo da ostane jednostavno ovih 6-7 minuta, da ćemo grow podijeliti u nekakve 4 kategorije, 4 pilara. I jedan od tih pilara neka budu soft attributes. Sjećate se jučer soft attributes product managera. E sad, kad uzmete taj soft attributes, to vam je još uvijek sve. To je hrpa informacija, soft attributes nažalost ne znači ništa. Onda kažemo da se soft attributes može opet podijeliti na nekakva 4 pilara. Pa četvrti od tih je soft people skills. Ili soft ili people skills. Opet smo ih spominjali jučer. Soft people skills vam je otprilike po 100 galaksija u svemiru. Ogromno i stalno se širi. Pa ćemo onda i njega malo podijeliti. I recimo da jedan od tih pilara je communicate clearly, kako smo jučer čuli, a to su neke komunikacijske vještine. I dalje galaksija. Ljudi, to je dalje galaksija. Mi kad pričamo o komunikacijskim vještinama, u biti svako priča o svome. Ne govorimo o jednoj stvari. Pa onda ajmo i taj communicate clearly podijeliti i onda je jučer predsjednica uprave poslovne inteligencije, je li tako? Rekla što? Active listening. Ok, sad smo u mliječnoj stazi. Ovo je sad dobro, sad znamo šta ćemo s time raditi. I sad ajmo active listening početi dijeliti. Vidjet ćete zašto nam je to važno. I prvo nam je oči. Eyes, active listening. First big chapter is eyes. Second big chapter is ears. Third, nothing. If you want to be able to listen to somebody, you must have nothing in your mind. No words, no pictures, no feelings, nothing, blank. Very hard to practice, but it's doable. Then you pay attention to the words that have been said, and of course, if you want to listen, the words that have not been said. And then in the end, you don't give a single meaning to whatever person tells you, because meaning comes from us. And if you take a look at this structure, this is only the listening part. This is not the communication part. This would be our solar system. And these are, let's say, a couple of planets. Now we are more narrow to our homeland. And then we take eyes. Just eyes. We start with the eyes. Where do you put them? half of you here, when you are talking to somebody, you don't look at their faces, and that's normal. You put your eyes on the floor or you put your eyes on the wall, and that's totally normal. You're just not aware of it. So you're missing information from where you should put your eyes. Number two, how would you do it? You cannot stare like a fanatic, right? You have to train yourself how to look at people and don't be a freak. When you do it, it's not, okay, but this is a planet, you still have to deconstruct that. When you do it and for how long? And now comes to the very important part, which is number 5 on the list, what you will be looking for. What changes in types on the face you will be looking for. Of course, if you don't look at them, you cannot see that. And then in the end, what is it? So now here is a little bit more of deconstructive, something that comes under soft skill. And the lesson here, I want to take it, that you take away from here is, any soft attribute, any, it doesn't matter if it's a single planet or a whole cosmos, can be deconstructed into algorithms. We can deconstruct it. If we don't know it at this point, it doesn't mean it cannot be done. Meaning, what has very nice logical loops. Repeat until. If you're doing this, then, else, then. And any skill, no matter how big or how tiny, can be deconstructed. That is important because that's how you learn quicker. That's how you explain to somebody faster. The only problem with this is that there is a visible part and then there is an invisible part. Which one is the more important? What would we say? Invisible part. You can teach me how to look, what to look for, what to pay attention, but if I don't give a damn, your teaching will not take us anywhere. So the only key takeaway here is, let's say not for you guys, because nothing will work here now, but for people we love, for our kids, for our friends, for our brothers and sisters, for our colleagues. If you want to excel them in something, you have to show them or find somebody who can do it, how to deconstruct. When you tell your people, take responsibility, be more proactive, it doesn't mean anything, but it can be very easily deconstructed what it actually means. And when you understand that simple steps, you can do one algorithm, get experience, and then just turn it into a new knowledge, make a mistake, new knowledge, new knowledge. But now this is something comprehensible, this is something that can be managed. It looked kind of different at the beginning, but if you're an engineer, if you ever did one line of code, if you love mathematics or writing your algorithms, this is how you do it. From listening, public speaking is just a set of different algorithms, and you learn it one by one, one by one. And now you get the whole picture and you can start mixing it. So, with no further ado, Marina, would you like to give us a small introduction to your product strategy panel?
Yes, let's start.
It's 9:11. You guys come here, we give you microphones, and we can then start at 9:15. Oh, you want to sit for 4 minutes?
Thank you, Frank. Or sing. I keep telling you, I would like to sing something. So yesterday we were talking a lot about strategy. Now we will dive more deeper in this topic. I like very much this topic. So I'll talk about this with my guests, Anna Zerno, Director at Product Operation Sinch, Scott Moore, Head of Human Machine at Opatija, and Sven Marušić, VP Delivery at Endava X5, UK. So welcome to all. For start, let's demystify strategy. What is strategy in basic? Yes. It's not working.
Okay, better. Yeah, strategy. When I was young, I thought it's something very complicated because it came from like all in headquarters or wherever. Some slides. You have to do this. Wow, these people were smart. We have to go there and do that. But actually, if you boil it down, it's not that complicated. It's not easy because it's actually a set of decisions. So you have to decide what game do you play, where do you play, what is the playground, and how can you win. And then somehow deconstruct that into the plan. How to win, how to be the best in the market where you are playing, and you are the best by having the best value proposition for the clients in that market. And that's it, If you are strategizing to not win, yeah, it's not a strategy. I think it is. So that would be my 5 cents.
Okay. So, this Scott.
I also thought that strategy came from up high in some special room from a guy who had it all figured out. But I would say I worked in different companies where finances was the strategy, where growth was the strategy, and also where customer satisfaction was the strategy. But I guess at this point in my career and where I am now, I would say passion is super key to strategy. At the end of the day, we mess up a lot of things around our world, around our company, around the things that we do, around different organizations. But at the end of the day, what brings people back is that there's a passion for what's happening. And the difference between a job and something you really, really care about and want to do is where it's headed. So I think strategy is connected to passion.
Okay, strategy connects all dots, user experience, product proposition, market, or your business. So how you should involve all the teams in the process? Yes, you.
I think there's something for all the teams in the strategy. So, for example, with Opatija, it was always about building a car, breaking into the car industry. And number one, Croatia's never done that. Number two, it hasn't been done in many, many years in Europe. And that's enough for many people to, get out of bed and get to work. But after that, it's how do you connect what you're good at to the passion of what the company is after. So if the strategy is this brand new car or this brand new product that nobody's ever done before, how do I connect user experience, or how do I connect finances or HR to that strategy? And I think that's the goal of good executive teams, to connect everybody to the strategy.
Sven, please.
I just want to say it's like $1 million question, actually. How you bring all the things together to work on a common strategy. So I guess our job is all about that, actually, trying to align and harmonize the company to push into a single direction. It's very different in the different environments, like humans, where they're really all focused on a single product, and that product must be really unique and different, and that's like the ultimate goal of the company, is to push that across the finish line. On the other side, in a services company, it might be sometimes harder to achieve that because you're working for different clients or different projects, but still figuring out your own strategy and trying to glue up all the things together to push in that direction. So probably we'll discuss a lot more about that around the panel today.
Okay, but who is responsible for defining strategy in the process of product development? Who is responsible for product strategy? Who should care about this? This is communicated to
the lady
each member of the team.
at the reception desk in our office should be also, to some extent. So, that's the only answer I can give you at the moment is everybody who is involved in delivery of a service to our client, if we're talking about services, what we're doing, is definitely involved in strategy, which is making a profitable product for our customer. And that's somehow, the reason why we try to distinguish our services maybe from others, or at least how we try to position ourselves was all about, end client success. And and we try to push that message through the company that we are not working for a vanity metrics or for our bottom line, but we're really working to make our clients successful, and we try to measure that success. So we'll probably talk more about that.
Okay. Anna, about roadmap, product roadmap. So teams are usually focused on short-term for the product roadmap, you know. How to balance this view?
Well, okay, so usually I will tell the story of the companies that I worked for. So yes, we collectively, you can't, put the strategy and then it's static and there. It's a continuous set of choices, how you actually go towards the vision that you set upon yourself, whatever that is. Is it whatever you decided to be the best in some field, and then you go in the set of choices, and everybody contribute 100%, because it can happen in the strangest places. Some new movement can be spotted, with a junior developer or with a head of product. It doesn't matter. Everybody contributes. What is a crucial role of somebody who is leading product in a huge, when you have 50 plus product teams? The huge role of that chief of the product is to have the why, the how, and the believable narrative about the story. Because it is in the end about the storytelling. We are humans. Everybody needs to understand the why and the how. And then roadmaps are one way of iterating that feedback of how are we getting forward, right? So product teams, again, what is a roadmap? It's a story telling about your plan, how to reach a goal that you set upon yourself, whatever that vision is, right? And of course, if you are agile, you can't have, if you are agile in software development, just to make it clear, not something dealing with hardware or something which is a little bit, more, let's say, expensive to make, you do not go too far away with detailed planning. It's up to 1 quarter, up to 1 quarter max that you go to, because you don't know. Honestly, you don't know. You have to put the hypothesis, you have to experiment very fast on it, you have to build it, you have to launch it, you have to see if it stays fine, you go a step further. So roadmap is very important. It's always a friction point between product and sales, because sales wants dates, product does not commit on dates. It's an everlasting story. But the important thing is that roadmap is one important part of that narrative, of these interfaces that I spoke about yesterday. So roadmap is how we communicate with the organization, because the rest of the organization needs to know what product teams are doing. And our way of explaining our plan, our strategy, our, let's say, roadmap, as the word said, is actually to have that in a concise and very simple way. And that's also important about the strategy. It needs to be very simple, because we actually want that thing to stick with everybody in the company. And the only way to do that, if you have 60 pages documented, it will not stick. It's 1 page top to explain what exactly are you doing. And like, how are you doing? And I will stop talking now because I tend to talk too much.
No, just go. Please. Great.
That's at least my experience. It's of course the perfect world. Of course you derail from that perfect vision, of course, because it's life. It's a lot of people. We all, we run and then we fail and we make mistakes and we get up and we run again. And that's why it's important that it's not a static thing. Strategy is not a static thing. You need to observe, you need to measure, you need to correct yourself if you want to stay on the road. And it's important that everybody knows that goal. Because if they don't know, then people will be creative, but in the wrong direction. That's the problem.
About roadmap, Sven, I have seen with many teams, they are more focused in, which is okay in today's development, but in most of the cases, roadmap is built with correction. We have a problem, we will resolve this, we will put this task on the roadmap, and in this part we somehow forget to create new value, upgrade product with new values, which will bring new customers, increase customer satisfaction, etc. So how to balance this? Okay, we always have some problems, bugs, issues, we need to correct this with this hygiene anyway, but we have to develop new value, build new value in the product.
Yeah. It's an interesting question because we are always dealing with roadmaps in our daily job, because we are building digital products for our clients. their initial inclination is to get as much as possible in a shorter period. We're trying to build the products, or at least put together a profitable proposition for them and figure out what resources we'll have to deploy in order to deliver what they need. So it's always a balancing act between in our case, between the customer and the team that's delivering a certain product. In 5 and now in Dava, I think we were lucky enough to do all our projects for the US-based customers. And when comparing that to my previous experiences, those guys were a lot more open to the idea of shrinking the feature set in order to get something across the finish line, rather than what I traditionally saw in Croatia or even in the European market. So it seemed to me that the customers were reasonable enough to at some point to understand the scope expansion is not really helping them, that they are not doing best for their own company, because even if we deliver that scope, which is pretty large, it can be faulty. The quality might be an issue, the timelines will be an issue, and so on. So as I said, it's a balance, but then we're trying to add additional phases of development. So that's how in this agency world, as we're digital agents, basically, you create a long-lasting relationships with your customers. If you deliver on your promises in the initial stages, and those products are successful in the market, you can expect more business from them. You don't need to sell maintenance, or you don't need to think a lot about how to lock your customers in. If you're doing a good job, they're locked in. And in order to deliver a good digital product, you have to have a reasonable counterpart on the other side. Somebody who is willing to think agile, to narrow the scope, to focus on milestones that can be achieved, rather than functional specification that's been sent out to procurement department, and who put all the ticks, or who marked all the checkboxes is the one who's winning, although nobody really knows how to deliver that. That's usually the case in procurement, in large procurements.
Yeah.
And they come to the feature set by surfing, Oh, these are the competition, look what they have, let's put everything.
Yes. Scott, I like the topic of your presentation. I'm not my customer, that's true. So I have seen in many cases that, let's test our product. My customer is my colleague from the next desk in the same room. So you in your work you do research with real customers. So do you have a challenge? Listen to the customer voice, or ignore them?
Yeah, I think we have both aspects of it. So I think in the hypercar business for high net worth people, you have this problem where the voices are very strong, and there are very few of them. And that's important because these are the customers, and you really do need to listen to them, and they really are spending money on the vehicle, but those are the people not asking for cars, but they're asking for more horses in the carriage, or the example that was given yesterday. A lot of times, the hypercar buyer is not a person who says, I'm dreaming of another big thing. They want another thing on their ladder, in their garage, in their collection. And so we actually found that we needed to go to different places to ask people for innovations, especially when it comes to vehicle software. And I won't bore you, but so much more of cars now is software than it is physical things. And you all have, we talked about yesterday, software in your car, and most of it sucks, and we're trying to fix that. But we actually need to go to the software world and ask people like, hey, what's a cutting edge experience look like somewhere else, so we can bring that into the vehicle? Or what does a really good touch experience look like, for example, on an iPad, and how do we bring that experience into the vehicle? So we do have a lot of great feedback from customers inside of the car industry and our own customers, but we really have to challenge ourselves to go outside, ask people in physical spaces, people who are dealing with different kind of trucks or buses or machines that are driving day in and day out, and get their feedback as well. But this is a big task, and it's a lot of work.
So there is always balance. Whenever we talk about balance.
Yes, but I think mostly not getting stuck in the same 5 voices or the same 10 voices. It's very easy to ask your colleague next to you or to ask your favorite friend who is somewhat close to what you do, but it's hard to go out and find those new voices.
Mhm. Cool. Anna, yesterday we mentioned a couple times sustainable products in digital world. What is actually sustainable solution? What does it mean? Is it related to time or value or something else?
Product is always about value. That's what product is about. It's a balance between the value you bring to the customers in order to bring the value to your company. That's all that you do. Balance between those two things and decide what to do next. But I would maybe just like to add on the feedback, how important that is, even in the feedback of the real physical people and the talk with the real users of your software. So back in my old job when I was doing PLG, we implemented like the top-notch product instrumentation. So we knew everything that was happening in that product. So, you know, from the recording of the behavior up to the, you know, very advanced adoption rates, very advanced retention rates, very advanced whatever, right? And then we were observing, we had a cross-functional team, and every Friday we would sit together and, you know, look through some points that had some success or some failures in the product. And honestly, what we saw by looking at the behavior in the digital product was headless chicken. You know, because you do not know the motive. You see them, you know, you can optimize the journey, you can optimize the path, but you do not understand what that person was actually trying to achieve and what was the motive why they did what they did. And then we actually started to prompt the people inside of the software to come back to us and talk to us. And we said openly, hey, we are seeing that you're stuck. Can you please, you know, jump in the call with the product team? It will not be a sales pitch. We will not try to sell anything. You know, just come and tell us, you know, why did you do what you did? What were you thinking? What was your motives behind? And we will award you. And we didn't give money. We were actually giving them pre-sales services. So we will help your business, you know, integrate with whatever they want. We will give you half an hour of expert working with you with something. And you wouldn't believe how many people approach, you know. Soon this calendar was shared with 100 product managers and people were popping and, you know, then we had to stop it a little bit because it was too much. But your customers and your users, they are very eager to help you. If they have any kind of emotion, and they probably did, they invested their time, they tried to test it, you know, it's a digital product. As soon as you sign up, you already, you know, spent 15 minutes of your life on deciding to sign up and doing that journey, so you are invested. And a lot of them, I think 18% in the end, was leaving some kind of feedback, so either clicking through some journeys or actually asking to talk with us. And that was crucial to move the product from being average to being much better, and that then became an important part of the strategy, is actually to include the user feedback. And of course, you do not include everything what they say, but you need to understand the motives to be able to judge where to drive that product further. And that's, for example, I mean, sustainable product organizations and sustainable products. It means that you are improving, you are going further, and you are always integrating, you're always observing, your eyes are always open, you actually look at that data and you look at that users. You should be excited about what you do, but some kind of joint goal and vision, and that is beautiful, honestly. If you go by functional specs, I mean, we used to did it 20 years ago, it was sad, honestly. You know? But okay, it was the time, it was that, we evolved, right? I remember that it was functional spec and pain, and then it was business analysis, and it was better, you know, and step by step, we are now in the world where we have the technology to actually be alive, to be real time, to really integrate.
You can't be embarrassed about what you didn't know, right? That was the best thing at the time, and that's what we did.
I agree, but it progressed, right? The product craft progressed tremendously on the way of the technology, because we now have the means to do what we didn't have the means 20 years ago, and that's the difference, you know.
Yes, 20 years ago, developers were intolerant, so you couldn't talk to them, just send them the specifications, just send them the specification. You can talk only to a business analyst.
And slide it under the door and leave.
They're still the same, but there's a lot more people around. Make it feel better.
Yeah.
Just to add on sustainability in the digital world, I would say it's actually ability to add incremental improvements to your product over time with a reasonable cost. So you can always have improvements, but sometimes it means that you have to redo the whole thing from scratch, and that's probably what you don't want to do. So in terms of sustainability, I would say it's related to time and really the ability to just innovate on the legacy architecture or whatever you deploy as a product.
Yeah, and I think on physical products, sustainability is that you don't throw it away, that there's maintenance for it, that somebody's interested in it, that it's not ending up in the trash. And this is a big concern in the physical product space. How are we sustainable, not just environmentally, but that we don't create things that we design that they be thrown away and we create another thing, that we are actually with a product for a longer period of time.
We can discuss about this in coffee break. We have here one guest from PRODUCTWORLD. Hi, Tanya. Yes, about food.
Yes,
Food production.
I'm from food development department, so everything you said yesterday and today is similar in food business, believe me. All of these cases, all of these things that you said, from development manager, development product, asking consumers what they think about innovations, because what is innovation in food business, you know? That can be a little thing that you cannot imagine, you know? A little thing on the maybe on the existing product to make when you try to make it better, you know, some changes, some little changes that your consumers set, you know.
For Opatija, the packaging changes are amazing.
Yeah.
Every time I go to the store, I'm like, oh, look, a new label, that's cool. I'm that guy that stares at the packaging in the aisle and I'm looking at it and the Opatija changed. I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, we have lots of redesigning our categories of product, you know, and we have new design of I don't know, existing products a lot. So it's true.
Thank you, Tanya. Sven, what is your experience with testing products with real users? User experience?
We are, I mean, talking now from the data perspective, that's our core offering. So some important part in delivering the product is basically testing it, and what we're trying to achieve is, you know, really test as much as possible in the early stages. So whenever we have something, you know, as at the time when we didn't spend a lot, you know, on the product to see how the market reacts, and we created a lot of different tactics or ways on how to do that. We even, you know, did things like fake front door, you know, so we would create websites for a product that doesn't exist. We would, you know, generate interest in the market, collect emails, and basically when people would come there, we just thank them for showing their interest and telling them they are on the list, you know, to get something. So our first offering that when we're talking to our clients is basically a product discovery or product strategy, but basically it's a discovery. In there, we are spending a lot of time in conceptualizing the product, but testing with real users is part of, you know, of this phase when we don't even have any kind of product in the market. Obviously, when we build something, then, you know, it's a lot easier to test. You can have different users and so on. And finally, you know, when the product is live and you're fine-tuning it, you know, then there is a whole set of additional tools that you can integrate customer feedback or look at market reactions or, you know, A/B testing and stuff like that. So that's, you know, offering on its own. So for example, we are working for Stars licensing company in the US. They're a big streaming service provider. We are doing improvements on their user acquisition flow. So basically, there is 7 days period when they got a new registered user until that person becomes a paying customer. So how to optimize that flow and how many of they are actually sticking. And it's been a process. We are doing it for like 4 years now. And 4 years we are iterating, and it's like really, really small changes, like changing the place of the button on the screen, or a moment when they're expected to provide their credit card, or is it like 5 days or 7 days? Is it red or green? And we're doing it always on the limited set of users of the stars, which is a huge customer base. And the best thing in this engagement by selecting that one is actually that we can really calculate the returns on investment they made. So they're spending, I don't know, quite a lot of money monthly on these iterations, but we are providing returns. That's why it's sticky.
That's typical product growth, right? So you are doing the product growth function for them, which is extra.
Yes, about product growth, it is important to real growth. We were talking about this upgrade of the product. You continuously need to create new value. So your strategy is to go somewhere. You can do this with only fixing. You have to add new value.
You have to balance between both, because specific products you always have depth in mind, right? So you need to agree, what percentage of that delivery pipe is low. That capacity is actually point towards the cleaning the depth, because if you don't clean the depth, you will always be within the problem eventually. You need to upgrade to the newer technology. You need to clean some things. That's usual. But I think that if you have a real close relations between the product manager and the engineering manager and the developers, you agree inside of the team how much. In my experience, we didn't even have the fixed time of how much time do we spend on fixing things and cleaning that. It was more, again, continuous process. When you notice simply that your product is not, performing as it should because of the depth, well, then it's time to pull the plug a bit and, correct some things. And, the time when you're not developing, you're not wasting, because you have continuous development and continuous delivery and continuous discovery. And, engineering discovery or discovering how to technically solve something is also a very important part. And you can devote time to that, to run in circles. But yeah, the innovation comes from tremendous places, in my opinion, usually from this great synthesis of different minds, right? So your developers, they need to know the context. If they don't know the context, they will not be able to really, do their wonderful job beautifully. I used to tell that when I was, never mind, some 5 years ago, I was in the position of product owner after a long time, being director somewhere, sitting, deciding on the strategy. I was again in the position of the product owner. And first few meetings, they were kids, they were 20 years. And I came to the meeting, what to bring the chocolate, how to bring the speaker. I didn't have an idea because, I'm an old timer. I coded last time in assembler in C. It was a long time ago. I don't know this new world, right? Not technically, I was in telecom. And then I was like in the room, and this guy was 11, when he was doing, and I was very rude. I told him, stop, listen, I don't care what's inside. It's your magic, Tell me, let's talk about the experience. I don't think that you finished engineering school, went to the university and everything to code. Go there and invent. It's your part of invention, My job is to explain you the context and what do we want to achieve and to bring you closer to the user. And then go and, create. It's your beauty. And then they got it, in the few iterations, that's got it. And they like to create. Developers, engineers, those are the most beautiful minds there, much more creative than marketing, honestly. Much more creative, right? You just have to unleash them, to give them the context and to bring them a little bit closer to the user. My way was not like Scrum way or Kanban way, because I was not good with the methodology. It was more like human interactions, honestly, and bringing them more close to the user. And I always started every day meeting with a big picture. Why are we doing that? For whom we are doing that? And what are we doing? And then, unleash them to do that. That's, at least in my experience, the best way to do it. They're all directors now, by the way. That in 5 years ago, they created, I think, tens of seniors in the meantime, because they got to the point of what product development is, right? They are engineering directors, not product directors, right?
You fed them with too much chocolate.
You can feed them to create, but they need to know the context in which they are creating it. That's it.
I agree, we are more closer to consumers than marketing, definitely.
Much more closer. I mean, that's the whole beauty also of the product growth, because you connect product and marketing, and then you have others on that side. But you need to bring marketing in product, and that's also not easy. Same as in the engineers, it's same in marketing. You can't bring them in, and then need to bring them.
But I would say the most beautiful thing is actually when people start understanding that they can ask you questions that represent the product. So engineers come knock on the door, hey, I have a question about how this works, what does the customer think? That's step one. Step two is when they stop asking you because they figured it out, and now they actually have the product mindset. And this is like one of the best parts of the job is, stop asking me questions, and instead I train you how to ask questions with your team, and when they become engineering directors, this is product mindset is part of what they do. And that's
And there is lots of, I would say, internal PR of the product. We must continue to work on internal marketing, talk about the product strategy, roadmap, next steps, etc.
When I say so, I usually am around the office saying, but what about the customer? But what about the customer? And then when the engineer comes to me and he says, I know, Scott, I know. What about the customer? I won, that's a victory because they already know what I'm going to say, and the mindset is moving from one place to another. So that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So you can add into it.
I mean, we're coming back to the very start of the conversation, which was like how we communicate, how we get other people to work together, and think in the same way. Once again, from our perspective, I'm going to tell a small story on how we try to communicate this success within FAB. We inherited that into the Endava. It's really hard when you're having a lot of different teams working for different customers to create a common culture on what brings these people together. There's a team working for PIMCO and the other team is working for some other bank. They don't really have a lot in common. They don't have this common car as a concept that needs to be pushed in the market. So what we figured out there is basically our core product is the people and their own development and their own growth. In order to achieve that, we really worked hard to create a simple but powerful message on how we measure our success in the company and what is really successful. Because we are not existing for the beautiful code or for we exist for the success of our customers. And we try to measure that. So we have a methodology which evolved over time, which we called 5 score. And basically every 5 score, it was like a company was 5, so we can 5 is the grades in Croatia, so it made sense to create something like 5 score. And 5 score basically consisted of 3 main metrics. And the first one was the client North Star, which is basically the ultimate business goal for the client. When they hire us to do something, they usually want to generate returns. And we articulate these returns in either number of registered users or increased revenue or improved profitability or whatever. But it's a tangible, articulated number that can be measured. Then we have this, let's call it something like NPS, would they recommend us, and how happy they are with working with us, how efficient we are, easy to communicate, and so on.
You're still talking about B2B.
We're talking about five score, which is the methodology for evaluating projects. And when people in the company say I'm working on this project, it has a score like from 1 to 5. And finally, the third component of that score is basically our internal satisfaction in terms of performance, financial performance of the project, because very often, you sell some 100 days or 200 days to deliver something and you spend 800 days, So that's what can happen in IT companies. And that project is obviously not a success story from our own internal perspective, but can be for the client. So those 3 combined, the average is a number of from 1 to 5, and that's actually a score. That's what we have on plasma TVs around the office. Different projects with their scores, which are revolving. And while saying this, we had, for example, very successful projects in financial terms, in vanity metrics terms, that the customers liked us. They invited us to their parties and stuff, but the projects ultimately failed. The projects did not really meet their goals, and after a year or two, we would lose those customers, not because we did something wrong, but just the business wasn't ready to manage that product, or the general idea was wrong, or we were not opposing strongly enough their wrong decisions. Sometimes when you're a vendor, basically, you're in this vendor position where you're being paid to deliver something. It really depends on how you want to elevate your position at the table of discussing with your customer. Where you see yourself. Is it like a supplier that gets paid for coding, or a strategic partner that discusses their general business ideas? And it largely depends on you when you enter into these discussions. And I mean, if you're just a vendor, then obviously you don't have much of a business influence into what they're doing. But if you elevate your position, then hopefully you can influence some of these. So I can talk about failures more, but
we're all good at those, I think. Yeah.
Scott, what is your experience with the KPI structure? How do you structure KPI goals of the product?
Yeah, that's a hard one because the product cycle is very long for a physical product like a vehicle, and it has a lot of complicated steps that need to happen with government regulations and stuff like that. So we have internal KPI for success inside the company, for our teams, for our growth, for our happiness, if you want to call it that way. And then we have the external KPI, which is delivering the vehicles, delivering the products, and things like that. But I will say one challenge has been around creating a product brand, because now I've worked on 3 products here, or 3 brands in Croatia that didn't exist prior, and their expertise was honestly not found in Croatia. So we were redefining a new brand, and that became a huge part of the KPI. Do people recognize this name? Do people know where it's from? And have we succeeded in growing the brand and experiencing the brand and allowing people to understand what's going on? So somebody asked me yesterday, how come there are so many reviews for Nevada when there are only 150 customers? Well, one of the internal KPIs is that people understand what is 3 months and what is done and how Croatia is in the auto industry and how that's a new thing and a big thing. And so for me, in my world, one of our big KPIs was, do people know we exist, and what do they think of us, and what is the brand perception? Very early on, we couldn't test anything with customers with a name in it. We didn't have a name. We didn't know what the car was called. We didn't even know what the brand was going to be. So we had to take interiors and materials and things to people and call them something else. And say, this is probably from a German manufacturer somewhere. Give us your feedback and do that. And it really changes people's perception as to where they think something is from, and who built it, and how they built it. And so our KPI has been hugely something that maybe other organizations are not paying attention to as much, but brand establishment, origin establishment, and success of breaking into a very stale old industry.
Cool. Anna, KPI structure.
Well, in the last 2 companies that I worked for, we use the OKRs. So company usually have some very limited number of objectives, up to 5, top 5 is even too much, honestly. And then from there, product is actually taking how can we contribute to these objectives of the company. And actually I'm working now in this product operations, which is sitting next to the strategic operations. So we are in charge of how to, again, build a narrative around these OKRs. And very important not to do top down. You do not tell somebody, I don't know, go to the lowest level of the product, bring me engagement rate increase of 7%. You can't do that. You need to let the teams figure out how much can they stretch themselves in order to really achieve. If you go really top down and put a number, from what I think as a manager should be done, the team will say, yeah, that's not possible, and then they will not give their best. So I think this is the important part. So they need a narrative, they need to understand the higher objectives of the organization, of the product. So product vision, product narrative, why do we do what we do, how we do what we do, and then let teams, reach out with, okay, my PRs will be tap, because I think with them I can contribute to where we are going. And then of course you negotiate a little bit, you push the teams which are a little bit, not, I don't know how to put it, adventurous like others, right? And you come to some common goal, and you do a lot of retrospectives. So you measure yourself, you see where you are, you correct on the goals. So it's not like you put the goals and then you forget them for the year and then panic in December where we are. That would be very bad. So you
actually have a freedom to read your own KPIs.
You have KPIs.
Usually it comes from the top down.
Now you have KPIs of the product, specifically technical KPIs that they are not negotiable, like item stability rate, some speed of delivery, some stability for the big clients that we have. Those things are operational, non-negotiable things that are simply happening, right? You need to track it, you need to alert yourself if something is, you need to react immediately because you have contracts with the clients and you need to keep the deal, right? But on the innovation part, on pushing the product further, you let the team set their objectives and PRs. And of course, you have the product leaders to assure that we are driving that ship in the same direction. If some part of the ship is going to be red or blue, that's maybe not that important. Let the team decide if we are going into the direction where we want to go. But yes, I think that the freedom to decide, as we were discussing yesterday, the main job of the product managers is to make these decisions. If they are not making the decisions on their own OKRs, then it's not empowered team. It's the team that is making features by the order of the higher instance, And of course, in a huge organization when I work, for example, not all teams are on the equal evolution level, right? So somewhere you give freedom, total freedom, somewhere you need to come there, coach, help them to come to the freedom. You can't, because sometimes it's people are simply not ready for that amount of freedom, and that's okay. They will learn, and your job is to help them. Honestly.
More chocolate.
Yes, crush will. I live near crush, so they will like me because I always, when I go to speak with children, which usually my devs are, then I bring like a Santa Claus, here is your sugar. Let's discuss.
Hiring, you should give a plug now after all these years.
Yes.
I was hiring, I think, maybe, I don't know.
Sven, let's talk about methodology. Do you follow any special methodology or you don't have methodology development? Do you follow some standard methodology as PMI or HR framework or?
Okay, in development, we follow
Yes,
many different
yes.
methodologies in many different areas of work. But yes, development is mostly agile. It's what we're selling, what clients are more and more buying, and we prefer that way of working. Where the problem really is when you have clients that are, paying you in a waterfall model, but rather, would like to work in the agile mode, which means that you basically have a limited amount of money for delivering unlimited set of wishes to your customers, and that can be a challenge. So when we talk about agile, especially in today's world, I even think it's not appropriate to initiate relationships in the agile mode. So we should be able to deliver something on a fixed scope, fixed price basis, and deliver it however we want to deliver that, earn our trust, gain credibility, and become kind of the extended team on behalf of our customer. And then we can talk agile. Then we can talk about, but you need to earn that trust, because initially when you conceptualize a project where you're basically planning to deliver something in an agile mode and they have a fixed deadline and fixed budget for you, that's not agile. It's just opposite. And how to bring those two together is a challenge for every IT company today. So.
You always have to find your own methodology.
So what I'm saying, when you're getting to know your customer, when you're initiating this relationship, first 1, 2, 3 engagements are, I think, more. It's easier to do them in a fixed scope, fixed price basis, rather than with a known outcome, rather than engaging on the agile basis straight away.
Scott, very expensive.
Yeah, I wish I could come to you and say everything is agile and it's so amazing, but unfortunately, car industry is not that way due to homologation, crash testing, these things. So you really have to decide in the beginning when the car is going to launch. You need to schedule the crash test. You need to schedule all the appointments with the different homologation places, and so you start with an end in mind. That just is the way that it is in the industry. But inside of that, inside of our specific teams, yeah, we're doing different types of agile work. I just talked about yesterday less. I was really working hard to push some of the less framework inside of some of our EE and software departments, because the software is independent from the vehicle, and it's not part of crash testing, and it's not part of these system places. So where we can be agile, we're really trying to push the boundary on that, and I would say it's not figured out. And if you meet someone who's doing agile and they haven't figured out, please run away. Like don't work there, because I don't think any of us haven't figured out, and I don't think that it's staying still. Like if we're staying still and we have the same methodologies year after year, I don't know that we're pushing ourselves. But it's finding that sweet spot, and also the deeper it goes, the more believers you have, and then the more innovation that you drive. Like in the beginning, you don't have that many believers in this new way, and saying just trust us. Every 2-3 weeks we're going to have something amazing. That isn't an easy sell. So as time goes on, it evolves, and as time goes on, you get better at it. But I would say we live in a mixed environment because of all the dependencies that are external to the company. We have to schedule those first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. Anna, you mentioned yesterday that you don't care about methodology.
No, we care about outcomes. I think Sven put it well. In the end, it's do you deliver the value or not. Organize yourself however you want. Keep the same narrative, keep the boat going into the same story. And I mean, even in this CPaaS/telco industry, there are a lot of, call it, I don't know, products, projects, doesn't matter when you have a fixed deadline. It's the regulation, right? It happens all the time. So sometimes you need GDPR came, come on. We all remember that time. It was not a negotiation, you simply have to deliver. That's the date where you have to change your systems, huge systems like billing, like, web, like everything. So that was it's a mix, I think agile is much less about the methodology, it's much more about the mindset. You have to be business agile and not Scrum or Kanban or whatever, SAFe, God forbid. But no, absolutely no. SAFe is even not agile, in my opinion. SAFe is strict and waterfall, but doesn't matter. Please don't get offended if you are practicing SAFe, it's okay. In the end, it doesn't matter. If you manage to deliver the outcome, and if you manage to keep the satisfaction of the people that you are delivering to, and if your devs are happy and your teams are happy, you are doing a good job. Doesn't matter how was that goal comes.
Okay, it's time. It was really a pleasure to talk with you. We will continue later. Coffee break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. And now, ladies and gentlemen, how did it go? It's something completely different. It's always the idea of, let's say, Job IT conference, so in the middle of the second day, to have something out of the box. Something that's not related to non-IT industry, but something as a product that has totally different thing. For you, through analogy and understanding the first principles of product development, it can be very, very useful lesson. So I'm giving you Mr. Felix Lucas, who is going to show us how he came up with the idea of women tour. How should I say it? It's a but it's boring. Female tennis in Croatia tour. You want this one?
Yes. Should I speak English, Croatian? What's the situation here? English, all right. So my name is Felix Lucas, and believe it or not, I am Croatian from Kaštela. Bronx of Croatia. So it's first, it's honor to be here, and I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't see there would be so many serious, well-educated people are prepared for kind of a casual party vibe, usually end of the week. That's how the conferences are. So I will speak a little bit about struggle we have, about product development that we did in a really difficult circumstances and in difficult times. So organizing the women's tennis event in Balkans in January is really tough. First of all, because it's hard to sell that product. And the question is, what is a product in tennis? That is not crucial question that we have a lot of dilemma. Mainly, all of the big mining corporations, right? Like, I don't know, CVC Capital or whatever, all the big investment funds, they speak in tennis about the product, and the product is a match. Match is a product because 66% of the income comes from data sales. And my personal opinion is they're going to destroy one of the largest mainstream sports because they think of a product, a tennis match. Because they sell data sales rights, more matches you have, more money you get. So if you have less than 40% of the money coming from broadcasting, TV, ticketing, everything, then of course your focus is not going to be on all of those elements that bring popularity to the sport, but it's going to be how to produce more matches, and that is making more events, longer season, destroying the health of athletes, etc., etc. But now we're going to talk a little bit about that towards the end. Start with the happy things. About a WT event in Croatia, which started in 1991, and it was one of the largest social events in Croatia. At that time, we were a brand new country, and our former president liked to play tennis. Of course, how to promote new countries by having two tennis tournaments. It was one in ATP Umag, the other one was WTA Ball, and like all government-related projects, product development makes no sense. So where to have an event in a city where you have 1,500 inhabitants and you build a stadium with 2,000 seats. So you have more seats than you have people living in a city. And in the first year of that event, war started, so the players had to go through sailing with a ferry to Island of Brač, so it's kind of a unique experience. But it helped me to get the license 13 years after the tournament left Croatia. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story. But when I started with tennis, I started because my younger sister is a tennis professional. She's currently 230 in the world. And big management agencies like William Morris Endeavor, IMG, Lagardère, all the multi-billion-dollar companies, they believe when you're over 18 years old, you're already old, you have no prospect. And at that time, she was 900 in the world, 19 years old, made some strategic, her management, some strategic bad choices. And her management said, she's already old, our focus is not anymore on those type of players. So I quit my job, went completely into the retail and said how to create a product completely outside of the box. And we were focused on how to support young and upcoming players by minimizing the cost. Because if you play tennis, you need to have minimum 250,000 euros to burn each year, not expecting any return for multiple years. And that's a difficult choice to make, and for the players, and for the parents, and the system, besides these big 4 countries that have Grand Slams like Australia, French, US Open. Nobody else has a system in place how to develop upcoming players, and everything is kind of independent struggle. So I was a kid when this WTA tournament was being held in Bol, and then Igor Stimac had legendary faces, disco, it was, for me, it was a flash, a show. From Castel, I couldn't buy myself a ticket to go to see. But how life, write novels, that's how I was in a situation to choose Bol as a location for my event. And why I did that? Because it was easier to sell that product. For me also, it made no sense, island, logistic difficulties, higher costs, less sponsors to be involved, because it made no economical sense, to have an event in such a small village, a large-scale event. But I thought it's going to be easier to sell in Croatia because people connect WTA, which is the biggest brand in women's sports in the world, because almost 50% of all stories in media related to women's sports are related to tennis. And out of top 10 best paid athletes in women's sport, 8 of them are tennis players. So that shows, practically how strong this brand is. But for me to, after so many years that nothing was happening in women's sport at that level in Croatia, I had to choose something that people can connect to. And I picked Bol, and I was selling that as a revival and bringing back women's sport. I was getting everything that people did before me to ease, my push and to help me to do that event, because I was at that time a 27-year-old guy with no, financial or political background. And sponsors had to take a risk with me. At that moment, it was Blue Sun Hotels and Resort, Atlantic Group, and City of Bol, who were initially decided to, close their eyes and take a chance. Even though the chairman of the board at that time said that officially they're not going to support. That was an official board decision because they said, I'm going to go bankrupt, and it's going to be embarrassment then for them as a company who supported that event. It's going to be public humiliation. But I was clever a little bit, and the owner was Jako Adabak, and I played a little bit Hercegovac style, self. And I played a little bit, come on, we can do it, who's going to do it, you're going to do it. Then suddenly I got a support, but of course, the board didn't like that I went over them, and I had afterwards, technical details. That's why we're now in Makarska 5 years after. Everything goes in a circle. But we did start it. And how to get the WP license if they ask bank guarantee of $5 million to apply. And of course, for me, there was no chance to get it. But I had in mind, let's organize numerous events that are on lower level, which we can do. And so we did from 2013 to 2016, more than 60 professional tennis tournaments that was being held at single locations. So that was more professional tennis event than any single organizer in the world did, more than national tennis federations. We had in 2015 1,500 tennis players from 60 countries participating. So after Mediterranean Games is split, that was the biggest event by number of participants. And some of the now top 10 players like Maria Sakkari or Kasper Ruud, Barbara Krejcikova, they were all playing our events. But the idea was to minimize their costs. So we did back-to-back events. So you lose. How in tennis goes, for example, now my sister is playing in Koper in Slovenia. She loses, she has to change the flight ticket completely, her schedule, then goes to Prague, then you need to pay hotel, the coach, and everything. Then you lose again, then you're already going to the next tournament half depressed, with no money in your pocket. So it's completely unhealthy, unsustainable, unfortunately, system. But we got an idea, we copied, to be honest. The idea that Turkey had in Antalya, it was a government strategy how to prolong the season, something that we speak in Croatia a lot, but nobody's really doing anything yet about it, because it's more expensive to get from Milan to Zagreb outside of the season than to fly to New York. So it's ridiculous, but that's another topic. So we had back-to-back events. So you lose, you stay, you practice. You had $50 all-inclusive deal. So you could live in a hotel for 2,000, something over 2,000 euros, 10 weeks, living in a nice hotel and a beautiful, in Bol, up in April, May. Nobody's there, it's paradise. we had no website, we had no social media. We're talking about it was 2014 to 2015. So we had no marketing campaign whatsoever, but the players were posting on their social media channels, and of course the beauty of ball pushed itself, and we became the most popular ITF event in the world. And WTA approached me, instead of me going to them, and said, look, we need another clay event in Europe, because all of the tournaments were going at that moment to Asia, to China, because of the money. They had all the money to pay the licenses. And second week of French Open after Paris is the week the license that practically I acquired. And now when I got the license, it was, then again, going to sponsors and trying to sell a product which doesn't exist. Because people didn't know, how valuable is women's sport. They didn't know that in let's call it now, it's popular Western world, you have companies like Nike, Adidas, or you name it. They're focusing more on the women's market. So when you go to Nike store, I don't know, Fifth Avenue, you have women's department, and then you go to the basement somewhere, one shelf, it's a men's department. Because of course, women spend more money, they spend it cleverly, and they became more and more decision makers. I hope nobody's going to get offended. I'm just saying how they approach that population, and of course, how to get approaches by women's sport, and the most popular women's sport, women's tennis. But I'm speaking with our companies who are, my opinion was, they were lacking, they didn't see that opportunity, so I was then, okay, let's set it the old way. Let's organize the parties, DJs, champagne, Dom Perignon yachts, everybody loves that. Then we had a first event, we had a players' party on a 70-meter super yacht, 250 players. So everybody was like, wow, this is it, So we sold it. Our product we sold, unfortunately, Balkan style. That was the only way how to get the money from our decision makers, to make a party, to create an atmosphere that they're going to come and enjoy. And then we build it up, slowly. We build up our product, we build up our venue, and still we struggle, unfortunately, with Croatia not following trends of European Union. Namely, in Croatia, our media follow only 5 to 10% women's sport in comparison to men's sport, which is disaster, and it's going even downhill. So now, personally, we're fighting, to improve that, but it's a difficult struggle, and still, after so many years, we did 60 ITF events, it's going to be 7th WTA event, and we still have to sell on old school, the way how people were selling sports product, 30, 40 years ago in this region. So we'll go further. Now we're in Makarska with our strategic sponsor, Valamar Hospitality Hotels and Resort, who is #1 company in the tourism sector. Use this really to promote my sponsors. And we started this in 2022. We're going to this year have event June 6th till June 11th. And of course, we expect for you to come and to see what we do. And this is some of our results. Like I said, we had in a previous year, WTA had 55 tournaments, 5.4 million visitors, 7,000 broadcasting hours. So you see there is a huge value, and this product is growing more and more. WTA is also a multi-billion-dollar brand, but they're not really also focused for let's say younger demographics, because in ATP average fan is 60 years old. In WTA it's 56 years, so that's average tennis fan. So now speaking about product development, and me as an owner of a WTA event, I will tell this is Chet from house probably, everything that he said is not going to go in the media, I hope not. But honestly, to a little bit be in a friendly and direct ambient, I don't believe in a future of tennis as it is. I believe that in a short time, even though there was never more money in women's tennis, in tennis overall, so just to give you one data, ATP signed a $1 billion deal with stats performed for I don't know, 5 years of data sales. That's just money that comes in without you doing any work. Because in tennis, people bet the most, more than any other sport. If you follow football, you have one team is going to win, or it's going to be draw, or you're going to lose. But in tennis, you have number of sets, number of games, number of whatever. And then you have a situation that you're 200 in the world, and you cannot make the league. So you're, I don't know, 27 years old. You're working 7 hours a day, 8 hours a day, traveling all the world, and you have to ask your parents to borrow you money, I don't know, to pay shoes. It's unbelievable. It's something that a lot of people are talking, including Novak Djokovic and the rest, but nobody is doing anything because the system is too strong. So you're in IT sector, you heard about Oracle. Oracle is one of the largest investors in tennis, because former CEO Mark Hurd, he was a tennis player, and Larry Ellison owns what we call in tennis 5th Grand Slam India Wells, so they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in tennis each year. They organized a new system called Universal Tennis Ranking based on their software, which each year they're investing again, dozens and almost 100 to 200 million per year. But nobody, I don't know how many of you heard about UTR and about their ranking. Nobody cares. That's my opinion. And tennis needs an evolution. Tennis needs new products. So I'll tell you how I think of a product. I believe that tennis product is a tennis player, and that the whole system needs to, when thinking about improving the product, it needs to think about improving what you guys are paying tickets to see. People on a court, playing some game, hitting the ball with the racket over the net. It needs to be more fun, it needs to be more dynamic, you need to have more marketable players. So how to do that? We'll skip some boring stuff. This is just about the DJs. Nick Kyrgios, guerrilla marketing. We did the exhibition, Martina Hingis, Ivan Moyoli. So I'm skipping all this stuff, which I don't think it's so that interesting for you. Of course, we have to have government support. We're still working in Croatia. Without that, it's hard to get the budget, which is almost 600,000 euros for it. It's the smallest budget in the tennis world. You have to have women in your team, of course. Otherwise, it's easy to go to bankruptcy, particularly if you like parties the way I do. But I don't know if we have time. How much time we have? 10 minutes. Perfect. So I will tell you about something. You're going to be the first. This is my first public appearance that I'm going to speak about a new product that I trademarked. Thanks to one of our best IP lawyers, Silvia Krasnik, who helped me a lot in the protection of this project, because we had a few largest world companies, I'm not going to name them, some of them we even settled outside of the court. They tried to steal the idea. Some forms of a project similar like time tennis are happening as we speak, but this is by far currently the most innovative sports product in the world. And hopefully, in a 5-6 months period of time, we're going to cooperate with an early stage investor, one also large global company, who's going to help us to disrupt the industry. I'm not sure if we're going to succeed, but definitely it's a challenge. So I'll tell you why. I tried to speak with ATP, with WTA, and told them that percentage of anxiety and depression among tennis players is rising extremely. The quality of life is at the lowest level you can imagine. You have no family, you cannot have a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. You cannot have a dog, you're 83 at the house. You have no time, you have no plan. You don't know in January where you're going to be in February, which tournaments you're going to play. And the satisfaction that you get from it is really, really low. Because nobody's speaking anymore. When you go, for example, to US Open to Players Lounge, or it's like a funeral episode. You have management agencies taking care of their players, particularly in the women's tour, everybody's looking at the competition, and then you cannot make your living. You're working for 10 years, and you cannot buy yourself an apartment. So if you're selling ice cream now in Split in the summertime, you have a definitely higher quality of life. You have more money than being 250 tennis players in the world, and you have 80 million registered tennis players. And now you have all of the large companies, like I said, including Oracle and the others, big money, big bucks, and you have a situation like that. So I said, of course, when Corona gave us all time lockdown, I said, fuck it, let's try to develop a new ecosystem. Sorry, I beg my pardon, but that was really, what happened. And I involved people who were former top 100 players, because you have so many people that are unhappy with the system, former employees of WTATP, and we created what we call evolution of tennis, but we're going to promote it as a new sport. It's called time tennis. We use the same infrastructure. It's the best sports product, 100% in the world, and we're going to develop it in a completely different way. We're going to be able to produce more matches than ATP and WTA combined, because our new scalability model. But the main focus is to improve our product, the life of tennis players and all other stakeholders, including sponsors, volunteers, everybody. So we did that in a way. First, we changed rules of tennis. You play time tennis, of course you play on time, right? Different counting system, scoring. You don't have any more games, sets. It goes quite quickly, like in basketball. You win a point, it's 1-0 for you. You lose 1-1. But then if you hit a winner, you get 2 points. So we use, as you notice, something from basketball, then from volleyball, some rules. Then, we combine historically all the interesting data, and percentage of active play in tennis was less than 20%. So 18% only is the game. More than 80% of the time, people walk, sit, drink water, and you guys are watching there. 80% of your time, nobody's doing anything. In time tennis, that percentage rose to 67%. So it's a huge increase. And of course, you can walk while they're playing. You can go to the toilet or drink a beer, whatever. So it's more flexible, more fun. That's how we're going to attract younger demographics. And the biggest, question is, for example, I invite you to watch my sister on my tournament, WTA Makarska, this June. And you ask when is she playing, I tell you, 4th match on the center court. You have no idea when it's going to start, when it's going to finish. And you can't organize, and you want to come and see, you want to be a tennis fan, but the system doesn't allow you. In time tennis, you're going to be able to watch a match, exactly knowing when it's going to start, when it's going to finish. Of course, it's going to increase our income because the broadcasters are going to love us. They're going to be able to fix the program exactly knowing, how much time they need. Secondly, we're going to remove pay-per-performance system, which currently exists in tennis. And you're going to have a fixed salary plus variable part of income in order that as a tennis player, you can calculate your living cost, your yearly plan. In January, you're going to know which tournaments you're going to play, where you're playing that. We're going to minimize the carbon footprint because tennis players are the three that travel the most. You have a tournament in China, then you have a tournament in the US. There is no plane. It's not like playing, in Barcelona. You play La Primera, and then you go Champions League. Here you travel like crazy. So carbon footprint is exponentially higher than any other sport. So we're going to minimize it by huge, huge percentages. It's going to be the first sports circuit that is going to be full gender equal. Nobody's applauding, nobody cares. But every event is going to be combined. We're going to have men's singles, women's singles, and mixed doubles. It's going to be like Formula 1 competition. So you play as a part of the team. In the team, it's going to consist of the 3 men and 3 women players. You play no individual. So what it's going to be, if me and Domagoy are in the same team, we're going to be able to play against each other. But our points accumulated will go towards our team, and some somebody of us is going to be at the end also a single, world champion. But now, not to bother you, with all the tennis-related details, what we believe we're going to do, we're going to allow thousands of people to play professional tennis and to make a sustainable living. It's going to be more fair. So you're going to be able to maybe make 50, 60,000 euros per year, but you know that's your profit. The difference in the pay of the best ones and the, let's say, less ranked or lower ranked players is not going to be that big. And we aim, instead of aiming to the top, to get top 50 players, we're going to fight the competition by taking everybody else, taking the grounds. Why we believe we're going to succeed and nobody else in a sports world doesn't think so, because they believe you cannot create a new sport if you don't have the most famous athletes playing. I believe it can be done, because if I tell you who is Ashley Barty, I don't know if somebody's going to know that she was a former #1 tennis player in the world and made $20 million in prize money in 2019. So she enters the room, I don't know how many people recognize her. So I say, I believe we're going to be able to create more marketable players. We just need to create this platform, and we're able to create this platform with 100 times less money than current tour has. For example, in ATP WTA have $300 million prize money, only 200 people can live out of that. In time tennis, with 3 million, with 100 times less, 300 people is going to be able to make a sustainable living because of our new revolutionary financial system that's going to be put in place. And we believe that this product is going to be a revolution also in approaching sports. Not to follow the trends where the money goes, but to go back to the origins. Sport was always a solution to some social problem. Basketball was a solution how to have in YMCA, a professor of physical education needed a solution to have kids playing indoor. Afterwards, YMCA also had volleyball foundation 10 years after they figured out the rules of basketball. But tennis followed the society. It started as a royal game. It was played indoors with different rules. Then it evolved when Great Britain was a superpower as a country house game. So I would invite you to Castella. We play for a week. We have some champagne, grilling, women cooking. That was the age back then. But in today's world, you don't have time to go and spend 5-6 days or to watch 5 hours tennis game. You cannot be a fan. And the solution is time tennis, the best product in the world of sport. Thank you.
Just when you think that you heard the craziest one, the more crazier come to the stage. We have exactly one question for Felix. Okay, Mario.
Hi. Great idea. My question is, how do you plan to share the infrastructure from the other tournaments? I mean, do you have an arrangement with them? Are they under the WTA or ATP? Or how do you plan to tennis matches in Slovenia or in Turkey or in China, which would be time tennis and not the usual tennis?
That's a great question, and definitely the moment we go public with this, the system is going to attack us. We're going to use the same infrastructure, so we didn't change. You play forehand the same, only you don't have any more 2 serves. But we use the same lines, rackets, so we're going to use the same infrastructure. But our opposition is going to try to, let's say, not allow players to play time tennis. And they're going to do that, but not, for example, in the same week, if you have a ATP or WTA tournament, and player is playing time tennis, they're going to give some penalty, maybe not allowing him to play for next 6 months, and not to compete maybe on a Grand Slams. But that's what is the long-term thinking. We even want them to approach that way, because we're not going to aim for the top 100 players, we're going to take for the grounds. And without the grounds, we're not going to have a future in the sport. And we want the players to compare the quality of life here, when you know how much money you're going to get, Where are you traveling? Where are you sleeping? You're not anymore. You are hiring a coach. Coach is hired by the team. You have everything secure. And we want them to compare quality of life in time tennis and the struggle on the tennis tour. First year, we're going to have some issue, but long term, I had Kristina Mladenovic, former top 10 and a Grand Slam winner. She said, if this thing exists, even if I make less money, I would play. Because I think that's a normal human approach. Each one of us would maybe even refuse a financially better offer to work if it's unhealthy environment. So that's practically how we think we're going to be able to fight that. But the initial problem is when I approached I cannot name, but it was really interesting, world famous brands. They said the comment was, it's too disruptive, too ambitious, and then in a year after, they would try to do something similar in their existing models. So that's where the direction is going. But now it's going to be really tricky to see how we're going to fight the big guys in order, what we believe that we have to go big. We have to organize in numerous world regions like US, South America, Europe, at once events to be quick to get everybody in before direction comes. I don't know if I answered you, but that's the idea.
Okay, guys, have a great coffee and see you here at the 1100 hours.